To Information Week's Valley View. It is February 16th. I'm Fritz Nelson.
And I'm David Berlin.
We are coming to you live from our studios in San Francisco, our headquarters here, and we've got quite a lineup. Actually, probably more people than we've ever stuffed into a 45-minute show before. You want to walk us through?
Yeah, well, I'll start. Maybe you can help me out. Our first guest is Ricard Steiber. He is the Global Marketing Director for Mobile and Social for Google. And we're going to be talking about Google Plus for Business, why businesses might be interested in using Google's relatively new social network in the scheme of things. And then after that, we have partnered with Dealmaker Media, who is, they run a great startup conference down in the Valley. We are the MCs of that conference. And
thank you for informing me.
Yeah, that's right. Just trying to tell you. And we are letting them select 2 startups for us to feature on each of our shows. And so we'll have a couple different startups here in the business intelligence space, and we'll let the folks from Dealmaker tee that up for us. And then after that, we're going to have a little bit of a debate. And the debate is going to be between 2 companies in the mobile device management space, Good and Mobile Iron. And then we're going to wrap things up. Well, we're not going to wrap it up. We're going to have Michael Scath. He is the CIO for the San Francisco Symphony, right? And we're going to be talking to him about the challenges of running IT for a very important brand here in the San Francisco area. And then we're going to have telyLabs here to talk about some cool technology that they have.
That's a new startup, really cool stuff.
That's
Can't
right.
wait to see it.
That's right. Works with Skype. So, but before we get into the meat of the program, you usually have some news to share, Fritz. So
I do. I have some news, and I have a rant, and I have something a little fun as well prepared. So, so let's get started with the news. I don't know who knows this or not, but Anonymous hacked Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's email account last week. It turned out to be an easy task. His password was 12345. Meanwhile, another group of hackers discovered that to get into the Syrian presidential palace, you just have to say, "Open Sesame." Anonymous also broke into many accounts of al-Assad's staff who used the same password. Many emails were leaked, including correspondence about an upcoming Barbara Walters interview. Said one email, "Americans think we're hard on our citizens. At least we don't subject them to the View." Apparently, DARPA is working with Washington-based Innovega Optics to create virtual reality contact lenses with tiny full-color displays on which digital images can be projected to give wearers situational awareness. The lenses, according to the news report, could let users focus simultaneously on images that are both close up and far away. Until the contact lenses are perfected, soldiers will continue just to consume magic mushrooms. NBC streamed the Super Bowl over the internet a couple of weeks ago, reaching 2.1 million viewers. There were plenty of complaints, including intermittent connectivity, blurry video quality, challenges with Microsoft Silverlight. One online viewer, Giselle, said that it was a little difficult to see all the Patriots drop passes. Now, not all viewers had problems, but NBC Universal chief Stephen Burke's wife told complaining viewers that Stephen can't provide the streams and watch them at the same time. Apple and Samsung are at it again, David, and I just need to rant for a minute. They're at it again, duking it out over patent infringement, with this time Apple putting the hammer on Samsung, claiming a variety of misdeeds, including the ability to unlock iPhones by sliding an image and to search for information by voice. Now, before it was clicking a linked phone number in an email and having the phone dial before Apple, So before Apple spends another $1 billion on suing someone over, I don't know, the size and shape of the box the iPhone comes in, or the fact that Foxconn doesn't let its employees take bathroom breaks, it might be worthwhile to take a breath and see what Apple has wrought. I realize that every company must protect its intellectual capital and every company has a right to compete fiercely, but come on. Despite Samsung's alleged liberal thievery, Apple has been outselling Samsung even in Samsung's home market of Korea to the tune of 70 to 80% market share, according to some reports. And let's look at the one-time dominant phone manufacturer in the world, Nokia. Nokia this week announced that it was cutting 4,000 more jobs. adding to the almost 10,000 cuts the company has made since Stephen Elop took over as CEO over a year ago. And Research in Motion, one of the dominant corporate American mobile players and in the federal government, replaced the company's founders with someone named Torsten. After months of mishaps, the bleeding isn't stopping up there in Canada. Just this week, we learned that energy giant Halliburton has decided to phase out BlackBerry phones in favor of the iPhone, and that the federal government's procurement arm, the GSA, has now agreed to buy iPhones too. And just this week, Apple's stock price passed $500 a share, valuing the company at more than $500 billion. So remind me again how it is that these companies are harming Apple by stealing its intellectual property. If Apple has its way, we'll all just go back to simply talking on our phones. Now, if only all of these other manufacturers could just mimic the clever way iPhones manage to drain their battery life so quickly, then we'd really be in trouble. Meanwhile, Apple rival Google this week won European Union approval for its acquisition of Motorola. But the deal still needs approval from other regulators, namely those in Israel, Taiwan, the US, China, and basketball phenom Jeremy Lin. But in perhaps one of the most notorious news events in recent times, Tommy Jordan, a regular old IT guy in Buzzard Breath, North Carolina, became upset when his 15-year-old ingrate daughter posted angrily on Facebook about her parents' outsized demands on her, namely having to do chores. Jordan, who ends his video by shooting his daughter's laptop with 9 .45 caliber hollow point rounds, was visited by social workers over the weekend where he got some tips on parenting. And yet Jordan was at it again, this time as the IT guy taking aim at end users. Let's take a look. Good afternoon. It's February 7th, 2012. This is from one of our accountants, Hannah, writing to the help desk complaining about her system problems. Now, this is for all you end users who think it's cute to complain about IT, and for all you IT guys out there who think your end users actually appreciate you. Now, she says, every time I try to use Internet Explorer, it just keeps crashing. Hannah, I've told you at least a dozen times not to use Microsoft's buggy software. I just spent $130,000 on new software for your computer and patching your operating system, and you're still using Internet Explorer, i.e. 6 no less? She also writes, my computer is so slow I can't get anything done. I don't even know why we have an IT department. What do you guys do all day? Now, Hannah, we IT guys ask ourselves the same thing, but you know, we happen to be IT, so we actually see what you do all day, which is waste a bunch of time and our company's money. How many times have I told you not to let your kids install games on your system? Yeah, we saw that. And just the other day, I caught you playing Angry Birds on your iPhone while you're supposed to be on a conference call. And now, since you want to hide it, I'm going to share it with everybody on your Facebook wall. And did you know that at night your husband downloads porn and puts it on a hidden subdirectory? I'm not happy. Frankly, I think it's disrespectful. I'm going to put a stop to it. I'm going to put a stop to it right now.
That right there is your laptop. You see it's out here on the ground. This right here is my 45. That was the first round. These are exploding hollow point rounds from, yeah, and you have to pay me back for these too, because these are about $1 a piece.
Well, I have a feeling a social worker is going to be visiting you pretty soon, Fritz.
That wasn't my handgun. I was borrowing something.
No.
Now, that wouldn't happen on Google+. He posted that on somebody else's social network.
That's right. He did post it on somebody else's social network, but here to tell us why maybe he should have posted that on Google+ is Richard Steiber. He's the global marketing manager, a global marketing director for Google in the area of mobile and social. And one of the things we want to talk to you is about Google Plus for Business, but what we want to start with is what is Google doing to get more traction for Google Plus? There have been a lot of jokes circulating on the network about how it's, you know, in last place, and that's where you go if you want to hear crickets, things like that. So what is it that Google is going to do to address the last place position, so to say, and then draw more of a community in there so that the engagement really ramps up?
Yeah. I think, I mean, the way we're thinking about Google Plus is not another sort of social destination, but it's more sort of bringing the social layer to everything that people are doing on Google already today. So we have billions of people using search or YouTube or Maps and Gmail, etc. So it's adding the social layer to everything that people love and do on Google every day. And similar to brands today who do advertising, if it's search or display or YouTube advertising, adding the social layer and the social dimension to make advertising a bit more relevant. That's the way we're approaching it, rather than thinking of it as a separate destination. I think social it's not really something new. It's like a core human behavior that we hang out with our friends and our family and people who share our interests. We'll do it in the real world, but also we're doing it increasingly online. So it's adding that dimension to Google rather than creating another destination.
But there seems to be this wave where other social networks, ones that exist or new ones that come along, it's so easy to just mimic some of the things that happen on other social networks. So, for example, when Google Plus came out, the big thing was circles. Facebook now has lists. You know, how do you compete with the new guys who come up and the established players who just copy everything you do?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the world is becoming increasingly social, so, you know, having features and functionality that really adds value is, of course, something that, you know, if someone comes up with a good idea, it probably gets copied. I think especially social is so cluttered today, you get so many sort of posts and messages all around, so a thing like circles, where you can talk to the right people about the right things. So if you're Nike, you talk to runners about running, and you talk to soccer fans about soccer, is key important, rather than blasting everyone with the same kind of message.
Okay, well, you've come equipped to give us a demo, and I think what we want to talk about is what are some examples of how businesses can leverage Google Plus to generate more traction for their business and also get more engagement going with their customers, right? So
yeah.
What have you got to show us?
Yeah, so basically what I'm saying is that in May we started Google Plus, and you had user profiles. So if you look at the one on screen here, this is my profile. And what happened was that...
It looks like it's yours and your dog's.
Yeah, it's my dog Puppy. Follows me everywhere. So what happened was that a lot of brands like Ford and, you know, they got on and created a user profile. So very quickly we had to rally in, you know, how can we make sure that Google Plus becomes something which is relevant to businesses? So how can we have an identity for brands, and how can we make sure that social is not just an afterthought, but actually something that ties everything that companies do online, if it's search, display, YouTube, video, together. So today, most brands, we launched this in November. You can have now business profile pages or brand pages. We launched in November. We have over 1 million brands on there today. I think there's over half of the top brands in the world are there now. So if you are Angry Birds, if you have a quick look what Angry Birds would look like, this is a great way for them to have an identity on Google, build a following, and interact with them. So it doesn't matter if you are Angry Birds, or just recently we had the president having a hangout with the people. So from Angry Birds to the president, and you have David Beckham and rock artists in between there. It's a great way to build those connections. So let me give you one example. So Android, I think most are familiar with. If you search for Android or Android phone, there's something called +1. So +1 is basically saying that you recommend something. So you can do this on search results, or on ads, or on sites, or on videos and YouTube, or on this Plus page. So if we look at the search results, if you look here, I basically search for Android phone. So you can see here in the ad, you basically have my face that I have recommended this. So when you search for that, we're now friends, we connected earlier today. You will basically see that your friend Rickard, who's a mobile geek, recommended this phone. So you're more likely to engage with the ad and think it's relevant. The same thing goes for search results. So if you, in the natural search results, if you look for Android, you'll basically see the face there as well. Computer's a little bit slow here. Let's go down. So you can see in this case you have Salagar who has recommended this specific link. So what happens is that it basically, everything you're already doing on Google today, being normal search, display, YouTube, advertising, it basically blends the recommendations of your friend as a dimension to everything you do. So it's not really about how many you have on a specific sort of profile page. It's basically reaching the billions of people who are interacting with Google every day.
If I'm a business, and we run a business here at UBM TechWeb, one of our goals is to get as much exposure for what it is we are putting out in the marketplace, in this case, media products, conferences. And it seems to me that I would go to Google+, if for no other reason, just to get some more mass market exposure than I'm getting on the other social networks. The question is really, is everybody else just really doing that? Is that just another outlet to get more reach for your brand or for your business? And is there really a unique selling proposition where Google Plus can take your reach that one step further than Facebook, Twitter, et cetera, other networks where they're engaging? Because we're gonna be there on Google Plus.
Yeah.
We have to be there because we can. It's not that, it's free, right? It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
So therefore, it makes sense for us to be there, but we don't know what the real advantage is. Is this going to be a better network than the others?
Yeah, I think for you guys, I mean, you're having this fabulous show, for example. You could easily do a hangout where you can invite people from around the country to join and ask questions like the presidents would do, or even the Muppets did, at least recently. So I think having that sort of face-to-face conversation, it could be your show, but it could also be Samsung. They use it for customer service, so you have face-to-face customer service, for example. So there are lots of ways where you can use this unique functionality. But also I think, Google has the reach on search and search advertising. We have 1 million sites on the Google Display Network, and YouTube have fantastic reach. So actually, by adding the social layer, you're getting more juice of the things you're already doing with Google. Mm-hmm. It's just making more relevant, not just for you as an advertiser, but for me as a user. So I can sort of see what is it that my friends are recommending and making more relevant content surface to me quicker. So there is something unique that you couldn't get on any other sort of social network. And I think it's not about social network, it's making the whole web social. So we want to make sure that Google and the rest of the web becomes a great social experience for everyone.
It seems like this unique proposition, well, let's come back to collaboration in just a second, but the ability to kind of have it all integrated into your Google experience.
Yes.
It is a benefit, but also in some ways a penalty if you don't. So for example, as David said, it's free for me to set up. It doesn't take that long for my brand to get out there, and I can start, marketing myself or marketing my company out there. But is there a penalty to not doing it? For example, in Google search, it only brings up Google Plus results. It doesn't bring up Facebook results and necessarily Twitter results either.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking in some way is, are you using that as an incentive?
Oh, okay, I see. No, I think our perspective is always to give the users the best search experience ever. So of course you want to surface the most relevant results. We're certainly open to looking at having other social networks content being in there. Currently we are not possible to crawl all of them, or they might have policies that will make it sort of difficult for me to surface my own content. So on Google you can surface your own sort of pictures, etc. now, but you can't do it on other social. If they open it up, we're certainly open to look at it, because I think at the end of the day it's having a great user experience. That's what we're after. And I think to your point earlier, what's the really good reason that you want to be on Google Plus is actually sharing. I don't know if you saw a statistic now that 70% of all branded content online are coming from user-generated content. So essentially, you have brand advocates, and since 9 out of 10 of us actually trust our friends, if you see our friend promoting something, that's something really powerful. So I think having that sharing mechanism in a relevant way is one of the key benefits.
One last question for you, Ricard. One of the things that we can't do today is auto-feed information into our Google Plus accounts. So for example, take Information Week as an example. We auto-feed all of our headlines, in some cases our summaries, to both Twitter and to our Facebook account. but we can't do that for Google+. Now, there was a program launched near the end of last year where Google was willing to work with a few of the tool makers for managing your social media presence, like Hootsuite, but it was only on a very limited basis, only a limited number of clients. Is there a time where we're going to be able to automate that? Because part of the appeal for us of working with Twitter and Facebook is that there's no cost to us. We don't have to go out and buy Hootsuite or anything. We just feed our RSS feeds into the service.
Well, and just to layer on to that, Ford, who you mentioned before, they have Google Plus presence on their own social page on the Ford site. It's only pulling in Facebook or stuff from their social feed, their own social feed. So there's no Google Plus feed coming in there, even though they're on there. So I guess the overall question is, how can you make it easier for us to pull that in?
Yeah, and I think we're very open that we're just getting started, and we're looking for feedback and how to make this better. To your point, I think that having those APIs that make it easy to connect to other software, we are starting doing some beta testing. It's coming very soon. The guys in the product factory are working extremely hard, to come up with amazing stuff. So we're trying to make sure what are the key things that you would like to do, and how can we work with those agencies and companies. So look out to sort of a web page near you very, very soon.
Okay, great. Well, Richard Steiber, Global Marketing Director for Social and Mobile for Google. Thanks very much for joining us here on Valley View.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, next up we're going to be bringing in the startup component of our show, where we get to look at a couple interesting startups, and I want to turn it over to Heidi Esern. She is the director of Dealmaker Media. Dealmaker Media is the producer of the Under the Radar conference. As I said earlier, Fritz, Under the Radar features a whole bunch of startups, and we've entrusted them to bring us some of the hottest startups, and this show's theme is going to be in the area of business intelligence. So Heidi, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the upcoming Under the Radar conference and introduce our first guest.
Great. Thank you, David. As David mentioned, I am Heidi, and I work at a company called Dealmaker Media, where we build relationships through knowledge sharing. Our big conference coming up in April is Under the Radar, where we will focus on the consumerization of IT. It is April 25th and 26th in Mountain View, California. And for Valley View audience members, we'd like to offer a special discount. If you go to undertheradar.com and use the code VVIEW, you will get 10% off our early bird pricing. At Under the Radar, we have selected a whole bunch of very disruptive startups in cloud infrastructure, mobile security, and my personal favorite, big data. Big data is a very hot term right now, but as we all know, it's not the size of the data, it's what you do with it. One Under the Radar company is Chart.io, and they do actually help companies do something with their data. They look at companies' business data that is stored in their databases. This information is transferred to and from their servers and then analyzed. Chart.io operates as the Google Analytics for business data. And today we have David Beyer, the co-founder of Chart.io, to speak a little bit more. David and Fritz, take it away.
Great, thanks very much. Well, David Beyer, we've got you here on the show, and you've been one of the lucky startups to get selected by the Under the Radar conference. We're looking forward to seeing you at the upcoming one in April, but we're here with you now so that our audience can get a really good preview of what it is Chart.io does. So why don't you just tell us, I know that Heidi did a good job of sort of teeing you up, but why don't you give us the sort of elevator pitch of what you do, and then we'll dive into a demo.
Sure, as Heidi mentioned, we are best described as Google Analytics for database data. The same insight that Google offers businesses into their web traffic, we offer into the data in their database. Broadly speaking, we are disrupting the business intelligence market, which is quite massive, the vast majority of which is delivered as on-premise software, which can be very bulky, extremely expensive, can take months, in some cases years, to actually deploy, and has notoriously bad user experiences.
What data sources are you pulling in?
So we're pulling in now from internal data sources like MySQL, Postgres. We have plans for Oracle and SQL Server. And then we plan to expand beyond internal data sources to external SaaS services like Google Analytics, Zendesk, Salesforce, and all the various data sources that companies use.
You know, one challenge when you start hooking to multiple data sources, I think one of the advantages, if I looked at your website, very basic, one-page website where it said that you have a degree in everything from Brown. Is that right?
Yes.
I don't know how you'd get that, but okay, we'll go with that. You go in and you discover the schema of the databases that you've got running, as you said, Postgres or MySQL. But then you tease out the most important stuff and you build some dashboards immediately from that.
Absolutely.
But it would seem to me that the minute you have disparate data sources, whether it's Google Analytics, Omniture data that's tucked away in a MySQL database or an Oracle database or something like that, they have different schemas. They're not necessarily tied to each other. That's sort of what business intelligence does, is it kind of emulates the idea of a data warehouse. How are you going to tease that out when the connections between the data are not obvious because it's different databases?
That's a good question. One of the things we actually noticed is a lot of the legacy business intelligence companies spend a lot of time and money building very complex ETL tools into their stack. And in most cases, when you have disparate data sources in your business, you're happy to simply see the visualization of that data or the analysis of that data side by side. You don't necessarily have to go through months and months of joining that data when there in fact might not be a natural join. So we focused on the issue of pulling in those various data sets, making it easy to see them side by side and in context. And then eventually, if you do want to join various data sets, you can use the whole variety and spate of ETL tools out there that basically pull the data together and make it easy to put into one data warehouse.
Now, a lot of companies claim they're going to make it all easy to view, nice dashboards and everything. This is a good way to jump into the demo here,
Sure.
But how are you guys making that possible?
So actually, it would be a wonderful way to show you what we do. In this case, we're using the public data set from stackoverflow.com, which is a Q&A website for software engineers. These darker tabs represent the various data sources that you can connect. They drill down into the tables, and those tables drill down into columns. In this case, we're going to start by looking at posting behavior on stackoverflow.com. Getting started is actually quite easy. All you have to do is drag the post table.
I'm just going to zoom here a little bit.
Drag the post table, and initially we see the results in tabular form. Let's switch to a basic visualization. If you look at this chart, you can see that there's a huge peak around the end of October 2008. That's actually when Stack Overflow launched. And then you see some seasonality around 2009 and the winter holidays of 2010. Let's dig a little bit deeper. And can we zoom out of it? Let's look at those posts which have comments which are highly rated. So we'll drag the score filter, set that greater than, let's say, 15. And now we've regenerated the visualization to pull out only those posts which have highly rated comments. What's actually happening in the background is we're generating a SQL query. So this SQL query then hits the customer's database. We pull out the results, display them on our UI. And interestingly, if you notice where I'm highlighting the join, that's something that takes people quite a lot of time to do. And if you're not that familiar with SQL, joining across various tables is a challenge. We can do that for you automatically.
One of the questions I have on that, and we're almost out of time. I know it seems like we've gone so quickly here, but that doesn't seem very secure.
Yes,
That's a good question. When it comes to business data, security is paramount.
we're talking about the fact that they're out on the web, my data's in a database, it's behind my firewall, and now
It's being
it's
transmitted over the web,
requesting
and
data.
it's being stored in the cloud on their systems.
So you have a whole bunch of software as a service business intelligence companies out there that ask companies to send them an entire copy of their database. That is one of the that presents more vulnerability. What we do instead is we connect to customer databases via an extremely secure shell, an SSH tunnel, which is reversed. What that means is that the customer does not have to punch a hole through their firewall. They can keep all their corporate firewall policies intact, and instead they tunnel out to us via the SSH tunnel, which is an extremely secure technology which has been tested for decades. And so that's how we pull in the data.
Okay, well, we're out of time. I want to thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for coming on the show. I want to turn it back over to Heidi, who is going to introduce our next business intelligence startup.
Thanks, David. It is your lucky day because I do have one more startup in big data analytics and information. And this company is MetaMarkets. MetaMarkets also tackles big data problems by using Hadoop and in-memory computing to manage petabyte-sized data sets. And they work with companies to process information very quickly. And they allow companies to very quickly process, query, and visualize their information in milliseconds. And that is very fast. And we are lucky today to have Mike Driscoll, the co-founder of MetaMarkets, here to explain a bit more.
Okay, so thanks Heidi very much for introducing Mike. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Heidi talked a little bit about Hadoop. She talked a little bit about in-memory. These are technologies that are being more and more frequently associated with big data. And so I guess in-memory is something that you're doing on your site. That's for performance reasons. Hadoop, is that something that's on your site, or does the solution work exclusively with Hadoop data sources? That's the one part that I didn't get.
So Hadoop is part of our stack, and we actually work with the raw data. So we bring in terabytes, over close to a petabyte in the last year of data, and Hadoop is part of our solution. Obviously it's open source, and we run the Hadoop processing as the first step in our data processing.
Okay, so Hadoop and in-memory are features of your business, not necessarily things that people need on their end of the pipe in order to make this happen.
Exactly.
Going back to the question that we asked of David Beyer, what about where the data is kept? Is it kept with you, or is it kept with the customer?
So our customers actually ship us their data into a secure bucket, which we manage. And absolutely, cloud security is a really big piece of our offering, and we've been lucky to conform with European Union regulations. We work with publicly listed companies. Security is critical, but it's possible to do on the cloud.
Okay, we heard what the unique selling proposition, if you will, was for Chartio. What, in your mind, is the elevator pitch, the thing that really makes MetaMarkets different and the reason that people should consider your solutions?
I think the biggest differentiator for MetaMarkets is our speed. Most people who use Hadoop struggle at a certain point to get answers in real time or in human time. And MetaMarkets has developed an in-memory database which, along with our dashboard that is layered on top, allows a business user who doesn't have a PhD to slice, dice, visualize, and analyze their data quickly at scale. So speed is really our selling point.
What is in-memory? What does that mean, just so everybody knows?
In-memory computing means that the data is kept rather than on disk, it's kept actually in DRAM. So Microsoft Excel is fast because all of the data is kept in memory. We do what Excel does, but we do it on the cloud.
And Hadoop deployments and some of the in-memory computing in commodity type servers is relatively inexpensive to do, so why would somebody want to do it in the cloud?
I think the key point here is that in this era of big data, your data is already on the cloud, and your analytics should be there, co-located with your data. The reason why the cloud's a great place is because you have access to scale. The data that we're talking about is too big to sit on any one machine. And so at MetaMarkets, we distribute it across hundreds of servers. So when a query hits, I'll show you our product, we actually distribute that query across hundreds of servers, similar to what Google does for when you do a search.
Why don't you load this up? I'm sorry I lost your browser window there, so we'll have to start it up again. But of course, you're going up against some big players too: Oracle, SAP, IBM, Microsoft. I mean, those are not small competitors. As a startup, how do you, how do you do that?
So I like to call Oracle and some of the other legacy BI tool providers big box retailers, because they're offering boxes, we're offering services. And we think for startups who want to get going quickly, who've got Hadoop running and are looking for analytics, we offer a very enviable price point that they can get involved
What is
in.
that enviable price point, as long as you're saying that?
So we like to price ourselves the cost of a single data scientist. So order of $10,000 a month, but it depends on data volumes.
Okay, why don't you show us how it works?
Sure. So we're looking here at the front page of our RTB exchange information. So if the example here is if I'm a head of monetization for an online publisher, it's really important for me to understand my revenues. And we log in here, we can see in the last week we've done about $3.5 million of revenue. We can look at our eCPM. And one thing we might want to look at is drill down into a day view and say, okay, how do we do today? We can see we made about $500,000, that's great. Let's take a look at our top advertisers. And what I can do here, and all of these queries are running in real time against our backend. We can do a comparison of these top 3 publishers, and we see a spike here. Let's see if I can pull it over.
And so this is all customer data.
This is all customer data.
Are you also taking feeds from social networks and things like that? Are you able to?
We do actually. We work with. We've actually done some work for the Wikimedia Foundation, looking at engagement of their users as well. So this model is not restricted to just publisher data. It's really any OLAP data fits into this model. So we can see here there's a spike. What I can do is I can share this report with one of my colleagues and say, it looks like we've got something going on with Shovel 3 Media. And the beauty of the cloud is that she can log in and see the same information. It's not a desktop tool like many of our competitors are. Is having a banner day. Let's see that.
And so it sends an email with an image of this?
It sends an email with a link to
Link
this.
to that, right.
Exactly. And really the power...
Because things could change. You want to be able
get
to pull up a
real-time.
live version of that, right?
Exactly. And the power is that, you know, there's this big push for data science these days. Companies are struggling with the volume of their data, and they're turning to data scientists. Well, we all know that it's very hard to find people with those skills. What MetaMarkets wants to do is give you data science as a service and put the kind of power that you get by analyzing large-scale data in the hands of a business user.
Well, we're just about out of time, but what customers do you have that are using this? Can you talk about some of them?
Sure. The most public customer to date is the Financial Times. Their head of global monetization uses this tool to effectively justify price increases for their advertising.
Okay, well, Michael Driscoll, CEO, founder of MetaMarkets, thanks for joining us here on Valley View.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck at the Under the Radar conference. And by the way, if you want to go and find out more about the company, you can go to metamarkets.com. Also for Chartio, their website is chart.io. So we're going to move into another segment of the show, right, Fritz?
Yeah, this is new. We're going to have a little debate, a presidential style debate, in a very hot area of technology, mobile device management, MDM.
That's right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to invite our Vice President and Director of Information Week Research to lead that debate. And in the field of mobile device management, we have 2 competitors here. One of them is Good Technology, the other one is Mobile Iron. And so from Good Technology, we have John Harama, he's the Senior Vice President of Corporate Strategy for the company, and then we have Ojas Rege from Mobile Iron to lead his company into the debate. So at this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to our colleague, Art Whitman. Art, the floor is yours.
Thanks, David. As you mentioned, this is one of the hottest and most contentious areas within IT. So, and we are holding a presidential style debate, so I'll ask the audience please to not cheer or to boo any of the people. Please hold your applause till the end. If you do cheer or applaud, we'll turn the camera around on you and single you out and make fun of you. Actually, you can cheer if you want to. So there's been no quicker rise than there has been for mobile devices within the enterprise. There's been a greater variety of devices taking prominent places in the pockets of people who have some very critical information and want access to it wherever they go and whatever they're doing. That is a nightmare for IT, particularly when combined with the rapid pace of introduction of new devices. So that's why we've asked John and Ogus here today to have a little debate with us. And we did a coin flip at the beginning, and we're going to ask each of them to do a very quick explanation of how their technology works and what their approach is. And Otis won that coin toss, so I'll give it to you.
Thank you. The Mobile Iron exists because business is going mobile, and a lot of the challenges that come up as a result of that cannot be solved by companies with the technology that they own today. One of our customers is a big bank in the Northeast, and their IT manager responsible for mobility, been there 10, 15 years. First time he met the CEO was last year when he turned around and there was the CEO in his cube with his brand new iPad saying, "Make this work." Now that CEO and that IT guy, those are our customers. The Mobile Iron is the only platform that was purpose-built for this post-BlackBerry world of mobility. And we secure and manage mobile apps and mobile devices while preserving the core user experience that Apple, Google, Samsung, and the others have created. So we are not an email company.
Okay. Thank you. John, a quick introduction.
Yeah, so good technology. We've been doing this for a long time, and from the very start of our company, our focus has always been on making sure that data is secure, because at the end of the day, when you're a government agency, a bank, healthcare company, really managing a device for its own sake is not something you're looking to do. What you're trying to do is make sure that your data, as it's being consumed by users on these devices, remains secure, remains compliant, and doesn't find its way into other applications or other services or other devices that are outside your control. So while there are some aspects of device management that we think are useful, ultimately our approach is based on making sure that in the context of the actual business applications, the data is always secure and controlled and cannot leave that environment unless it's allowed to do so based on policy. And so what we find is in this world where it is a bring your own device world now, the traditional model of locking everything down, blacklisting an app, doesn't work. So what you have to focus on is the actual data. And if you can control the data, then you can have security and compliance, and then you can let the user do whatever they want in their personal life on that device. And we think that's the best way to eat your cake and have it too.
Okay, so just one of the points that John brought up there was that developing a closed environment actually is beneficial because you actually know when the data is, how to keep it safe within that environment. However, you don't necessarily have access to other applications. Do you agree with that approach?
One thing that we've always got to remember with mobility is there's one person who matters, and that's the user. If I'm a user and I go to the Apple store and I buy an iPad, I want to use that iPad, right? I want that experience that Apple built. I don't want to use a different application for my email. I want to use that app. That's the challenge that the enterprise needs to solve, which is how do we let that user use the experience they love and then manage the security in the back end so that the user isn't forced to do different things and separate out their own life.
John, what do you think?
Well, again, I think first we shouldn't focus just on email because there's nothing about our solution, our approach that is actually just limited to email applications. But I think at the end of the day, there's a sort of an artificial way of thinking about this, which is the user wants to use a particular native application, and that our approach somehow prevents that. Look, if you want to use the native email application for Gmail, or if you want to use Dropbox in your personal life, you're free to do that with our model. The difference is we do provide certain applications, for example, email and a secure browser, because the native applications don't meet the security, compliance, and data control requirements of our customers. So we think we actually deliver the best experience for the user in their personal life because we can give IT the control they need, and IT doesn't have to say, sorry, you can't actually use iCloud because my data is going to end up there if I use the native client. You don't have to say, sorry, I have to take Dropbox away and blacklist it, or I have to block your access to business data. With our model, IT can focus on their apps, their data, and the user can still enjoy all the wonderful applications and all the aspects of the app model, Pandora, Dropbox, iCloud, without having any interference based on IT policy. But very importantly, IT policy doesn't have to be changed to accommodate that, and that's how you get the win-win.
Okay, changing gears just slightly here. One of the biggest concerns that we see from enterprises is just the rate of introduction of new operating systems for these devices and new devices in general. So what's your approach to actually keeping up with that? How close do you trail an introduction of a new device? And what sort of promises can you make to an enterprise that you'll actually be there when they have a new device to use? And obviously, let you take that one first.
When we first started building the Mobile Iron product in 2008, we were building it from scratch for the multi-OS world. The iPhone had just hit the year before, and from day one, we thought to ourselves, every year, every 2 years, new operating systems may actually make their mark. And so the entire code base was built from day one, understanding that. And that ends up being critical for an enterprise, because every global enterprise now needs to support 3 to 5 mobile operating systems. The challenge is they don't know how that 3 to 5 is going to change in 2 years, in 3 years. And so when you're purpose-built from day one for multi-OS, you think about these things through, and that's actually helped us tremendously with the next generation of OSs that we've seen in the last few years.
John?
Yeah, again, we've been doing this a long time. So we were doing this when there was Palm OS, Windows Mobile, Symbian, now Android, now iOS, Windows Phone 7. And so as a company, we're really good at keeping up with the new platforms, making sure that our security technology can be ported over to those platforms. And we take a very, very simple approach. We watch the market, we see what our customers are asking for, and then we support those platforms that the demand is around. So everything from iOS, many flavors of Android. We're launching support for the Windows Phone 7 app platform in March. And one thing that's very important is that because of our approach, all the variability in those different platforms, from a security standpoint, from an API standpoint, we actually take that out of the equation for our customers, because they know with our approach, they have a consistent approach to encryption, a consistent approach to policy, and a consistent approach to data loss prevention. And it doesn't matter what a given device or platform does or does not, very often does not, have built into it.
So do either of you know offhand of a number of different permutations of devices and OSs you support right now?
Yeah. Well, absolutely, because one of the things of our architecture, we have this component in the middle called the NOC, which actually allows us to see from an activation standpoint every single device, every make model that our customers are using. And we actually publish this out on our website on good.com. We put out a quarterly data report where we talk about makes and models, OS platforms, what financial services customers are activating versus healthcare. So that data is all out there for anybody that wants to see it.
So I was looking for a number like 26.
I'm sorry, 26?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll say 41.
Well, what I can say is certainly on the Android side, I mean, that's where the greatest diversity is, and we support literally hundreds of makes and models across every flavor, from 1.x all the way through 4 and beyond.
Otis, very quickly.
There are a lot of permutations, without a doubt, but there's a fundamental issue, John, with what you're talking about, which is, again, if I buy an Android device, I want to use the Android communications apps. If I buy an iPhone device or an iPad, I want to use those. So telling users that they have to use a different application that's not the reason they bought that device in order to communicate in their enterprise actually goes against the core of user experience. You end up in a position where you are actually competing against the native experience that Apple and Google have built for email and browsing. And our fundamental view is that those native experiences win, and you have to provide platform-wide security to support that.
All right, that's going to be our final word there. Thank you very much for participating in our first ever debate. The audience is free to cheer if they want to now for the two debaters.
Great, thank you, Art, and thank you guys for a great job. Much more interesting, I think, than some of the debates we've been seeing on TV. Although, and I keep giving Good Technology a hard time about this, when are you guys going to change your name to Better Technology or Best Technology? And I guess I could do the same thing to Otis there, Mobile Iron, Mobile Platinum, I don't know. So just something to think about, take home with you. My next guest is another startup. This one's kind of gadgety here. The company is telyLabs, and I'm going to butcher his name, I know, Srikanth Ravi. Was that close?
That's perfect.
Okay, great. And telyLabs makes a product called telyTV, and I'm going to let you tell us a little bit more about that. Give us the 30-second elevator pitch, and we have it all set up here, so. Yep. Give us a 30-second elevator pitch.
Well, we have two units sitting here, one on top of the big TV over there and a smaller
yeah, and
TV
David, we're going to use this. We're actually going to demonstrate the technology. We're going to do this whole interview. David's out in the audience. He's got the telyHD on top of the big screen. We've got one here on this smaller screen, and we're gonna show it in action, right? So.
Yeah, that's right. So it looks like our unit connected back to our Menlo Park office here. So let me just
we'll change that now. So this sits on top of your TV.
That's
and
right.
In the back, it's got an Ethernet connection.
Ethernet, Wi-Fi, or wired, and then it has an HDMI connection to the TV.
So your TV doesn't have to be internet connected.
That's correct. It can be any HD TV with an HDMI connection. It has a HD camera on the face of it, along with 4 microphones that create a beamforming and noise cancellation scenario. And it's really ideally suited for the family room where you have mom, dad, and the kids in the living room looking to make a video call to connect with friends and family that might be near or far.
But the receiving person might be on a tablet with Skype or on a laptop with Skype.
That's right. This scenario, for the best performance, we have telyHDs on both sides, but any of the 1 billion registered users on the Skype network can be called and connected with, whether they're, as you say, on a tablet or a smartphone or a PC or a laptop.
Okay. Now we have this audience here, and I don't know how much we can pick up on there, but I wanted to see kind of we wanted to set this up so we could see what it looks like with, if you have a room full of people, maybe a family of 10 and a family of 40 today or something. So,
okay, so why don't we make a call from over there, and if we can have David navigate to my baseball card over there, and he can see how easy it is. It's one-click calling, so there's all of your contacts are put into a carousel, and each one of those baseball cards represents one of the contacts in your list. And with the click of a button, after you find the person that you want to call, it's simply a matter of selecting that baseball card, and an HD video call will come up. So we'll wait for David to scroll over to my baseball card, which is Srikanth_Ravi.
Now this is undermining your notion that this is really easy to do. David's a really smart guy. You're not finding it?
I think I've got it up and running here. Are there 2 baseball cards for Srikanth? Is that maybe what happened?
Yep, that should be the idea. So if you scroll over using the left button or the right button and find my baseball card.
Okay.
There we go.
So I've got multiple logins, and unfortunately that's not the right one. Well, so what's happening here is that I logged into a demo account on the TV over there, which is also logged in at my office. So the call is actually going to, and there you can hear the call going through.
So he's calling back to your office?
That's right. He's calling back to Menlo Park. So let me just, if I can step over there, let me quickly make a call.
Well, you're connected, so we don't want to disconnect you there. Okay. But let's talk a little bit about the technology while let's see if David can hang up on that one and try to find the right card here. Now this product sells for how much?
This product sells for $249. It's available on Amazon.com as well as Skype.com. The main application in the product, while it's a Skype video calling feature, it's built on Android. And the intention of doing that was to allow our users to load other apps that they'd like to use from their living room TV. That might be Amazon Instant Video to stream movies into the home. It might be general purpose web browsing.
I see. So this unit right here is running Android. It's got a processor. And so not in addition to Skype, it'll be able to load other Android apps.
That's exactly right. So with the general purpose operating system and a general purpose CPU, we can run lots of different apps. And we envision an environment where instead of firing up your tablet or a laptop while you're watching TV, you can quickly open up a web browser, make a video call, watch a different video from a different movie streaming service. All of those things can be done through the telyHD device.
What we're going to do is I'm going to disconnect you here, let you go over and do that, and David and I are going to just talk a little bit about Skype. We're big fans here. And you come back. So David, I mean, and maybe we can get the audience involved a little bit too. I'm not sure if we have a mic, but my question would be, you know, how many people would envision themselves, would you envision yourself maybe doing a Skype call with your family from your living room, something like that?
Yeah, so I don't know, I'm looking out in the audience here, and I think that one of, you know, the idea of being able to connect this to the TV and do Skype through your television would be a pretty cool thing. It might be somewhat tied to the cost of it, because at the end of the day, we all have to spend some money on this technology, and our house right now, for me personally, is filled with all kinds of crazy stuff. We have Roku and Apple TV, iPads. So one question I have is how much does it cost, and then we can determine whether or not this is something that members of our audience might be interested in buying for themselves. So Srikanth, how much?
Well, as I said, the product cost is $249. That's a one-time fee. And when you think about how people are making video calls, whether they're in the business environment, which are probably your reader base, or some consumers might do, today the idea of doing HD video calling from a standard flat screen HD TV it's a very, very expensive proposition. In fact, the next least expensive HD video calling platform starts at about 10x the cost of our product. So beyond just the cost factor, it's the ease of use, it's the ability to connect to people that aren't using the same device on both ends. There's 1 billion people on the Skype network. Those are really all the benefits that are causing significant momentum for our product.
And do we think that there's some other features to this other than Skype? So you can send or you can share pictures? How does
That's right.
Are we able to do that here in this
Absolutely.
desk?
So our device has a SD card as well as a USB slot on the back. So
you
simply
see that
by
menu come up there.
Yep, that's right. So we can take our SD card out of our digital camera, and while we're on this call, we can simply navigate to the photo that we want to show David. And as soon as we select that photo, it's streamed in a synchronized way to both sides of the call. So he'll see what we call a collaboration window show up on his side, and at the same time that this image is being transcoded and loaded on our side, he'll see it come up on his side as well. Now this collaboration window, while we're showing photos here, can also be documents from the cloud. So it might be your Dropbox folder, might be a company intranet, so you can stream Microsoft Office documents and so forth.
So you're just going to get Dropbox as the Android app and take the photos out of there?
Well, through our collaboration window, you can navigate to your Dropbox account, put in your credentials, and start streaming PowerPoints or Excel spreadsheets in that same collaboration window.
Now, one of the questions I had before we got started was, it only hooks to HD TVs, right? So what we're talking about here is it's got to have the HDMI interface on the back of the TV in order for it to work. Is that correct?
That's correct. So 2 key points there. In the last 8 years, nearly every TV made has HDMI, so that's lesser of the issue. But as Fritz mentioned earlier, it does not have to be a smart TV. In fact, our device makes a TV a smart TV. Mm-hmm. So whether it's the video calling function we're doing here, or it might be web browsing or document sharing, all of those features. You can even play Angry Birds. So literally whatever app you can think of that you use on your iOS device or an Android device can display and operate on our platform.
And you can send video email, I understand, too? How does that work?
Yep, so if we make another video call to David and he's not there to answer, we can leave him a 1-minute video message. And it'll operate much like your home phone or answering machine at home does. You'll see the light blinking on the front, which is what's happening with our device here, indicating that there's a video mail waiting for you.
Okay, and so it is $249, Amazon.com or on tely?
On tely.com as well as on Skype.com.
And it's available now?
It's available now.
Great.
Why don't we do the reality check, Fritz, and see what our audience thinks?
Okay,
so,
poll them. What
I don't know if we can
think?
get the camera on the audience. By a show of hands, how many people out here think $249 is a good bargain for this kind of functionality and would actually buy one and put it in their house? Got a few hands going up.
I'll point out that we
the
sold out at Amazon.
Is there a price point? Anybody have a price point where this would be where they would it would change their mind? 149. I heard a 149. Okay. Well, there's our unscientific, unaudited audience survey. And Srikanth, I want to thank you very much for joining us here on Valley View. Fritz, what's coming up next?
All right. Now we're going to have a CIO. It's kind of a new segment that we want to have a CIO or CTO and a practitioner, somebody who actually buys this stuff for a living, join us. And we are lucky enough to have with us the CIO of the San Francisco Symphony, Mr. Michael Scaff. And let's just take a quick look at and listen as to what he does.
Michael Scaff is the CIO of the San Francisco Symphony, where he oversees the enterprise-wide technology strategy for one of the Bay Area's largest nonprofit organizations. From startups to multi-billion-dollar enterprises, Mr. Scaff has a distinguished record of building high-performance teams in strategy, development, operations, IT, and consulting across an array of industries including retail, high-tech, consulting, and nonprofit.
Okay, so Michael, thanks very much for joining us here. You're the CIO of the San Francisco Symphony, very popular brand here in the city, and you face challenges that are not unlike the challenges that a lot of CIOs in Information Week's audience face. We heard today from people who are wrestling with the idea of the consumerization of IT. We also have people who are using social networks to get their brands out there. We heard from Google a little bit about that. So when it comes to those different technologies, how do you use them, leverage them to make the San Francisco Symphony more successful than it already is?
It's a great question. In a lot of ways, we use these technologies in the same ways other businesses do. We use mobile for our sales force. We use social to do outreach for our patrons and get our brand out there. It's a lot of the same challenges that other IT shops face on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. You heard Ricard Steibel talking a little bit about why Google Plus is really a good solution for businesses that are looking to get more reach, engage with their customers, their audiences. Was that a compelling argument there? Do you work with Google Plus? Is it something that you pay a lot of attention to, or is it something that you're waiting for more traction?
You're on Google Plus.
I am indeed. We connected today. You're in my circle. But
I don't want to know which circle.
That's him personally, though, not with the symphonies.
Yes,
so,
right.
Correct.
So is the San Francisco Symphony on Google Plus?
The Symphony has adopted sort of a wait-and-see approach. We are looking at Google Plus from the business perspective, but we've been an early adopter across the board for a lot of different social networks. We were an early adopter of the Ning platform back in the day. We built our own social network on that. We were an early adopter of Facebook, Twitter. We've done a lot of work with Twitter. We actually projected people's tweets in larger-than-life-size letters up on the side of City Hall for our last black and white ball. So we really are trying our best to get out there and really connect with our audience in new and interesting ways.
I know you're certainly with a consumer audience coming to your all of the concerts. Mm-hmm. You're very concerned about consumerization of IT. You heard the mobile device management debate. What are some of your thoughts coming out of that?
Well, we're actually currently a good customer, and we've been a good customer, I think, for longer than Mobile Iron has been around. But that said, they have a very compelling argument, too. So as an IT professional, I'm going to be looking to see what Mobile Iron has to offer. Good does, as you said, a good job of addressing some of the challenges that we deal with, whether it's data leakage prevention, just basic mobile messaging, a lot of the standard challenges. But there's some interesting new challenges that are emerging with the acceleration of these new platforms coming out, as both of them mentioned, that we're keeping a close eye on. So trying to see which platform or which software solution will really win out.
What sort of technologies are your users bringing in and expecting, in the true bring your own device fashion? What are they bringing into the Symphony?
Well, we took a look last week or a couple of weeks ago at the Fire, just to see what that might offer us. We've had a couple of iPads running around for a while. We have 3 different mobile operating systems in our enterprise right now, so we really are seeing a lot of, at least on the mobile side, a lot of what everybody else is seeing.
You've been able to keep it all locked down?
For the time being, yes, but it's always a challenge.
And what about, you know, the symphony itself is a venue.
Yes.
And you have people coming in.
Yes.
What about their ability to engage over your technology that's in the room in a way that increases the overall community feeling of the symphony, which is really important, right?
That's a really great question. We're actually evolving fairly rapidly, actually, right now, our perspective on this matter, because for a long time we considered sacrosanct the experience of sitting in the symphony hall, watching the performance. For the first time this summer, we will allow people in the second tier to leave their devices on, hopefully with the ringers off, but at least they will be allowed to participate in Twitter and whatever other social media.
People will be tweeting. That was a
so
good measure.
Yes.
But because we talked to the CIO of the San Francisco Giants, and they had that issue too. You know, 50,000 people coming to watch the baseball team, and everybody wanted to bring their devices and be social and all that kind of stuff. I imagine it's a little bit more of a confined and more refined maybe atmosphere there, but people still want to do that.
Well, it's still a social experience. If you look at the way people tend to consume, if you will, their symphony experience, people come with their friends. They show up in pairs, they show up in groups. So it's a social experience, and they want to communicate out what they're experiencing while they're there. So we think that this is a step in the right direction to really socially enable the experience.
We heard a little bit about big data today. Are you a consumer or producer of big data in your own mind, or are you small data?
We, in the traditional sense of big data around consumer data, I think we're probably fairly small data. We run BI in-house, so BI matters to us, our customer data matters to us. Where you talk about large amounts of data is really our recordings, which is a different story entirely. We have a massive amount of data that we're recording on a yearly basis, so that's where our big data is. But yes, we absolutely do run BI tools and use them.
Are you able to, I mean, a lot of companies are talking about using data, and I know you have some projects underway, better targeting, you know, more on-time delivery, coupons, all that kind of stuff. Is that coming into play, or maybe you've already been there, done that?
Well, we're interested to see how consumers are consuming our product, how people want to buy their tickets. We were an early adopter of Foursquare's discounting opportunities there. We're really interested to see what our customers are telling us. So we're keeping an active eye on what they want and evolving as they do.
Maybe just last final thing, maybe some of the special projects that you've got going on there, technology-wise, what are some of the cooler things you're working on?
Well, from a traditional IT perspective, digital asset management is a big deal for us because, as I said, we record a lot of data. We have a massive amount of world-class content, Grammy-winning content, that we need to store and we need to organize. So there's some interesting challenges around that, making sure that's as accessible both internally and eventually maybe externally available. We also have another black and white ball coming up, so you never know what we're going to do for that.
Are you going to that, David?
No, I'm not going to be going to that. I got to head back to Boston.
It's a shame.
So, yeah.
It's a great event.
We'll be back.
Okay.
So, okay, well, Mike, Steph, thanks very much for joining us here on Valley View. We hope we'll have you back and maybe next year and you can talk a little bit more about how those projects went.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So we've got some prizes to give away here. First, to our online viewing audience, we have some prizes. And also for our in-studio audience, this time we're actually going to give you guys a little something here. And we're going to describe what all of that is. So first, why don't we give the online viewing audience the prizes? And I don't know, do we have our winner here?
We do have our winners, yep. No, for the online audience, we have the winners for our online audience. So what is the...
So let's talk about the gifts. Maybe somebody can tell us who that is. We have the
Kindle Fire.
Kindle Fire.
And this one is actually turned on already. So
but still in its wrapping.
Huh? Yeah, it's still in its wrapping. We haven't used it. It's untouched. It's ready to be associated with a fresh account if you have one on Amazon. Now, one of the things I read just recently was that the Kindle itself was responsible for reducing Apple's tablet market share from 64 to 57%. So this is actually making a pretty serious dent in Apple's experiencing attrition as opposed to growth when we thought that Apple was just going to run away with the whole thing. So, and you heard Michael Scaff saying that they're looking at this and saying, hey, we have to figure out how to allow people to use this device on our network as well.
Right.
So that's going to go to one lucky member of our audience. I don't know, do we have the name? Okay, we're going to get the name of that.
Okay.
All right.
And this is the telyHD.
Mm-hmm. So we just saw that.
We just saw that demoed. So you know what that is.
So what do you think of free? Is free a good price for this? Because we're about to give one away for free. Yeah.
Great. People like free.
Yeah, that's right.
People like free. And then I don't know if we have the in-studio, because while we're waiting for the names, we'll talk about the in-studio audience products. Karen, come over, just talk about them. This is Karen Avi from Plantronics, and
so you roped her into giving away some free gear.
Yeah, she brought some free stuff for our audience.
To our audience, and so now Plantronics, I'm a user of their products. They have what I consider to be the very best Bluetooth headset for hands-free use with your telephone. It's one that fits on your ear. It's called the Voyager. Oh, you have one.
So this is the Voyager.
Look at that.
It's the Voyager Pro.
Okay.
It's the Voyager HD, actually. It's our new Voyager.
Okay.
Does that mean the sound is HD?
Well, it means it has smart sensors on it, so it knows when you're actually wearing the headset like the Voyager Pro you see.
Okay. So the sensing makes it so that when a phone call is coming in and it's on my ear,
it automatically goes to your ear. But if it's in your purse, like my headset,
I don't wear a purse, but
or your laptop bag or backpack, then the audio will automatically go to the handset. And then once you put the headset on, it'll route it back to the headset.
Do you know what I love about this device? One of the little features I take advantage of is you can associate it with multiple Bluetooth devices, your phone, and that's really great because if you're using it with your mobile phone, like your iPhone, and then you go home and you want to use it with something that connects to your landline, you can just switch it over pretty quickly. So that's one of the big benefits of this product. So
that's true.
So how many of these are we giving away?
I actually have 2 of those to give away.
2 of those to give away.
Unless Fritz wants one of them.
No, that's okay. And then, in addition to that, we actually have the Callisto 835. Sounds complicated, but it's pretty cool. This is basically.
It's a smart speakerphone.
Smart speakerphone.
Yeah, so it connects to your computer, your home landline, and also a mobile phone. And this right here is a Bluetooth wireless lapel mic, so you can walk away from the speakerphone and still sound like you're on a handset or a headset.
Okay, very cool. And then we have this kind of funky looking thing.
Don't hand it to me. If you hand it to me, I'm going to drop everything.
Here, I'll take this from you.
Not a good juggler?
Yeah, no.
So this is our latest gaming headset, the Gamecom 780, and this has Dolby Digital surround sound, so it really gives you that in-game experience. You can hear people sneaking up behind you.
Very immersive, right?
Very immersive.
Okay,
so.
awesome. So do we have some names
we have the
of
winners.
people?
Let's.
Okay, hand them over here. Okay, so let's see. The first winner.
Of what?
Well, it doesn't say here, so we'll just decide right now on the spot. The telyLabs.
telyHD.
telyHD, that's going to go to Stephen Marmon. Stephen Marmon, so if you're watching, now you're going to be able to hook this up. Hopefully you have an HD TV.
If not,
in the first
go get
place.
one.
You can go buy one, right?
Right.
And you'll be able to connect that up and talk to everybody that's in your Skype. So now we have a winner for the audience in the room. Now,
one person gets that, and that.
One person gets all 3.
Wow.
Right.
Whoa.
Whoa.
That's nice.
Somebody's lucky.
Come back, because we're going to do this every show.
Now, Fritz.
Yes, sir.
This person is no relationship to you.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
Right.
Even though you and the 2 of you share the same last name. Okay?
That's a little hint.
Okay. Name is Heather Nelson. So Heather, where are you? Oh my God, come on up here.
All right.
So come on in here, Heather. So you're gonna now you're gonna get all kinds of crazy gear. So here's a headset. There's a
gaming headset.
There you go, gaming headset, and
What
Let's
am I
see, what
missing?
else do you
Oh,
have?
sorry.
I'm going to hold that.
And a
Now,
speakerphone.
can you juggle all that
I
for us, please?
can.
All right. So, I'm looking at your name tag here, and it says socialbetty.com. So now's your chance to talk to millions of people and tell them what socialbetty.com is.
So basically, socialbetty.com is a platform that brings together people who are planning private party and corporate events with venues, and venues can find more groups looking for establishments. It's pretty simple. You just basically post the details of the events you're planning, and then venues will express interest based on knowing your details.
So it's like a dating service, sort of, in the venue, yes.
So kind of a, matching up of venues and organizers.
And what do you do for the company?
I'm the founder and CEO.
Wow, okay, wow, all right. And how's it going so far?
It's going great. We started in San Diego, and now we're kicking off here in San Francisco.
All right.
And she just won a whole bunch of plans.
Right, it's going to make her more efficient at her job.
The founder of the company.
Well, and you know what's interesting, and thank you for coming here and also sharing what Social Betty does. Starting with our next show, this is me segueing here,
That's
David.
right, okay.
Our next show is March 28th. Again, we'll be here same time, same place. And I think we have a URL,
Yeah,
bit.ly.
if you go to bit.ly, bit.ly/valleyview4, you'll find all the details on how to come to attend the show online and become one of the winners of the products we give away at that show. But if you want to come here and attend at our offices, relatively easy. Just contact me or Fritz. Our email addresses are dberlin and fnelson@techweb.com. We'll send you all the details how you can join the studio audience and perhaps walk away like Heather is with all these prizes.
But not only that, and I want everybody here to hear this as well, starting in March, we're actually going to involve the audience more.
That's right.
In addition to Dealmaker Media coming here and bringing a couple startups, we're going to pluck a couple people from the audience at random.
Randomly, that's
At
right.
random to either demo or tell us about your company, kind of elevator pitch style, or if you have a demo, we'll work that in as well. So a little more added incentive to have some fun here with us and get some cool giveaways. Now, our March 28th show, we have some pretty cool guests already lined up.
We do. For example, we're going to have Parker Harris, who a lot of people don't know that name, but he is the co-founder of Salesforce.com.
With Mark Benioff.
Yeah,
he co-founded with Mark Benioff.
That's right.
So we'll be talking to him about Salesforce.com and the cloud. Who
We'll
else
have
do
a
we
bunch of other guests, and you go online and you find out who else is attending.
I want to tease people here. We have Andy Bechtel.
Oh, that's right, Andy Bechtolstein. And some of you who know Andy, Andy was the co-founder of Sun, another name that you don't know. You hear Scott McNeely's name a lot, but you don't hear about Andy. He's the co-founder of Sun, and he is now running a company called Arista Networks, which is a big player in the very high-speed networking space. We're going to have him here to tell us a little bit about how things are going and why you need the kind of gear that he sells and how he competes against companies like Cisco.
And last but not least, Phil Libin, who is the CEO of Evernote. And that is very exciting because we use Evernote. We actually use it to plan and manage this whole show. We use it.
It's my favorite application. Yeah. This is the killer app. The way it syncs up between your iPhone, your iPad, your computer, and the web. Keeps all these notes in syncs, and you and I actually use it, and we use the sharing feature to collaborate on stuff, and it's just phenomenal what it does. And so we're going to have him here to talk a little bit about what they're up to and where they're going with that, because it's a very exciting product. My favorite product right now.
Great. So join us again on March 28th. Thank you for being with us today. I'm Fritz Nelson.
And I'm David Berlind. We'll see you next time.